forget I have a ring light. So let's get into this. Video. So I was supposed to do this video a long time ago, but you know, it wasn't time yet. I had to wait till I was ready, and because I want to get everything out without being emotional. We all know how emotional I am. So, my brother. We're coming up on his 2-year anniversary of his death. He passed away in prison. You know, he made mistakes in his life, and he was being a man and taking responsibility. My brother, he developed an infection in prison, and it was left unattended. And you know, it's very dirty in there. My brother's a very clean person. Like, he's not the type to not like take care of himself. But he was denied medic. My sister got a call from the warden that he was in the hospital in Corpus, and family needed to get there. And she said, "What's wrong with him?" You know, and he's like, "Oh, he's just really sick," is what he said. So my poor sister had to gather herself and go alone to my mom's house and tell her face to face, because you know that's not something you tell your mom over the phone. I believe she called me first, but I was at work, of course, like I fucking always am. Just so mad at myself. Like I should have went with her. But I was in, like, no, I don't want to see him like that. It was all selfish, like all selfish of me to say. And I basically told her no. And said, let me know what happens, and hung up. And we got back to work. And this whole process, you know, my whole life changing and everything, I noticed that's what I do to avoid things, is I work a lot. I stay busy, I do things rather than dealing with it. I use work as an excuse to get away from everything and everyone. But that was because I was unhappy with myself. And I've learned that throughout this process, and I have a lot of regret. But I had to forgive myself, even though it's still, I mean, this is my brother, you know, like losing a sibling is one of the worst. It's just different. Like, it didn't feel like when I lost my grandma, it didn't feel like that. It's the worst pain ever. I think that accompanied with guilt is what gets me all the time. And so my sister goes with my mom, and they just so happen to get there in time. And I'll leave the details out of that because, you know, I was so emotional before. Well, I am still emotional, but I couldn't hear any of this, you know. So I called my sister earlier today, and I spoke with her, and she gave me some details I didn't know about. So they basically get there just in time. He was on life support. And what brought me close to Taro And I knew that tarot wasn't bad or anything like that. Because I never wanted to, I got my cards read once when I was pregnant. And never again. I told myself I'm never gonna get my cards read because they told me something. They told me something I didn't want to hear. Well, so I vowed when I was like in my early 20s, like I'm never getting my cards. Like fuck that shit. I don't want to know. Just let it fucking happen. Was my thing, you know. So the day of my brother's funeral, I think it was a year later. Okay, I kept getting this thing on YouTube, this notification magically of a tarot reading, and it was dated the day of my brother's funeral. And I just always ignored it because I'm like, why am I getting this? I watch true crime. Why am I getting tarot fucking, you know, why am I getting that? And one drunken night, I finally go and I watched it. And it was a message from my brother. And I'll never forget it. It changed my life. It really did. And it was a message from him telling me, I know you're not happy. And I know you're sad. And you deserve better. And don't be sad for me. I'm fine. Stop crying. I don't like you crying. And that changed everything for me. My life. You know, I thought it was bad, you know, to get your cards read and stuff like that. But I was so, I knew somebody was going to pass away in my family when my brother died. But I was in denial that it was going to be him because he was in prison. And when, you know, our people are in prison, they're safe, right? Well, that was very naive of me. Very stupid of me to think like that, you know. That's why I thought I didn't have to write him, you know, because I was very upset that he was in prison again, you know. It was a letdown. So I didn't write to him. I would hear about him like from my mom and stuff like that, but I didn't write him. And I regret that to this day. I wrote to him every other time he was in prison, but this last time, and that was like the biggest mistake I could have made in my life. And I still regret that. And it's nobody's fault but my own. And but in that reading, he was telling me to stop what the fuck I'm doing and live my fucking life. He said, be a little bit more like me. Okay, he enjoyed life a little bit too much. But that tarot reading, like, I just felt it. Like, it was him talking directly to me. And I didn't see that message till a year later. But it was dated. And I didn't know he had such burdens on it. He didn't talk. Like, he wouldn't say anything. Like, he was, he kept everything internal, which I should have known, you know. But his history, prison, like jail, like he was institutionalized, you know. He didn't know anything else. Which is why I always wanted to, it goes back to me buying my house here in this neighborhood. I wanted to make sure that no child ever feels like, you know, if your parents are busy, your family is busy, like they would have somewhere to go, like, you know, or have something to do, because it's a boredom that gets children involved in, like, gangs and stuff like that, because both my brothers were in gangs. And it was just the sense of belonging somewhere, or belonging to something, that, you know, that's where everything went left for my brother. And I miss him so much. But when he passed away, when my sister got there, he died, I think, like maybe like an hour or so later. And so they were able to see him, you know. And my sister called me, and by that time I was at home. And I never answered my phone back then. I always had my ringer off. But I think she called my person that I was with at that time. And Chris passed me the phone, and when she told me Joe died. I remember, like, I said no. And I, like, grabbed my heart. And I gave the phone back to Chris. And I just, like, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life until now. And and that was just me turning my back on him, you know. He posted before he got locked up, he posted a Santa Muerte on his profile. And that's when I was like, I don't want nothing to do with him. That's when I don't know anything about that. I never really read into it, but it doesn't matter. Like, I should have talked to him more, you know, about it. You know, I should have got to know what he was getting into. But instead, I just avoided him, and just stayed with my head down working, you know. I should have communicated with him more and, you know, seen what the fuck he was thinking, you know, because I don't know anything about that. So that's when I was like, oh, I'm not dealing with him, you know. Like, I didn't even talk to him or anything, you know. I just drew my own conclusions, you know. And that's a mistake that I made. And I'll always regret that. Because I knew for months somebody was going to die. I felt it in December. I even told my mom, I said, someone's going to die, Mom. I don't know who it is, but someone's going to die. I kept having a dream. Not of anybody specifically, but I just had that feeling. The feeling. And still, I'm thinking, oh, he's in prison. He's fine, you know. Nothing was going to happen to him. And my little sister was going to go on a cruise with her boyfriend. So I kept telling my mom, you need to tell her not to go, because she's going to fucking go fly overboard and no one's going to fucking find her ass. Like, I just kept thinking it was my little sister. And I knew it had to do with the cruise in my mind. The cruise was in February. My brother died a week before the cruise. And I had all of that time, and I could have written him. I could have, you know, made amends with him. When I used to ride him regularly. So I would have known something was up, you know? So maybe he would have still been here. But I know he was in a lot of pain. He wasn't able to talk. He wasn't able to walk. He wasn't able to eat. Somehow he was still ignored. The COs, every shift that came in, denied him medic. They prescribed him some medicine for something, but it wasn't working, and they still made him take it. He was just treated very inhumane. His constitutional rights were violated. Like, you still have constitutional rights. You're still a citizen of the United States. The way he was treated I mean, yes, he was in prison, but he was there. You know, he was a man. He took responsibility for what he did, and he was doing his time. He was going to right his wrongs, is what he was going to do. But for some reason, they still denied him his medic. He flatlined in prison. He passed out and died on the floor. And then they airlifted him to the hospital. And my poor brother was tortured. I always think he was tortured to death. And I hope those motherfuckers see his ass or hear his voice every fucking night that they go to bed. All those COs. Until I get a fucking explanation. But I don't want to be negative. What I will end this with is my brother was one of the truest people I knew. Yes, he had a questionable career. But we were not going to judge him because we don't know what he was thinking, okay? He was so loyal, and the one thing that everybody will say that, ask anybody in the hood, and they will say he was loyal and one of the realest motherfuckers out there, because he never screwed nobody over. He never, did any shady business. He never snitched on anybody. He was one of the truest motherfuckers out there, and he was always there for his people. He had the biggest fucking heart. Like, he was in the wrong fucking career. Like, I swear, he was a genius. He was a genius. Like, literally a genius. And it just all went to waste. And I felt like I failed him as a sister. And I live with that regret, like, every day. And another crazy thing, I'll add to the story. When I went to the funeral, I went alone because the person I was with didn't care to be there for me. That was another thing I knew my life had to change, because this person was never there for me, and this person also lost a brother. So I thought, I lost a brother. So, she's going to know how to comfort me and be there for me. And no, like, I would be sitting there crying, because it was so hard for me to deal with it. And this is actually calm. Like, I can actually stop crying and, like, talk. Before, I was, like, just inconsolable. Like, I couldn't even, like, I was so depressed. And I had to deal with those emotions by myself because I didn't have anybody. She would literally just look at me like, well, don't feel like that. Like, so cold, And I was like, okay, clearly this isn't for me, okay? So that's when I, and it just, everything after that, after my brother's death, was just like sign after sign after sign, like, bitch, you need to get the fuck out of here, you need to get this bitch out of here. I'll explain in another video all that happened to lead me to where I'm at, to this peace. Believe it or not, I'm in peace. But I'll do a video on that because it was a lot. It was a lot. But his legacy that he left was he was one of the truest people out there. He honestly, despite his line of work, he really didn't belong here. He belonged somewhere else, watching over us, because here he was labeled and he didn't have a chance to show his greatness and show his heart and what he was capable of, because he was just judged. every time he was pulled over, it was racial profiling. It was people just judging him. Because, yeah, he looked a bitch. I'm going to admit, he looked shady as fuck, okay? He looked shady as fuck. But, he was one of the truest people I've ever known in my life. And I'm very thankful for the time that I did have with my brother. Oh, what I was saying. Okay, so the funeral, I didn't tell Joelle. Joelle didn't go to the funeral. That was my ex's excuse not to go. So I'm like, fine, whatever. I'm going to be crying there by myself. What is he going to be doing there? Like, comforting me, you know? So my son stayed here. And I had been crying a lot, but I don't like my son seeing me cry. So I would stop crying, you know, when he would come around. And then one day he caught me crying. And he's like, why are you crying? And like, because my brother, you know, my brother's not here anymore. And he goes, your brother, the one that's wait, how did he say it? He said, your brother Joe, he died. And I looked at him like, who told you that? Like, so I assumed it was the fucking bitch I was with. I'm like, why are you telling him that? He's a little boy. I wanted to tell him, you know. And she's like, no, I didn't say nothing, which I believe because she did the bare minimum. Like, she wouldn't even go there emotionally, you know. So I thought that was weird. So then, like, the next day I come and I ask him, and I'm like, do you remember the other day when you told me, you know, my brother Joe, he died? Like, how did you know about that? Like, who told you that? And he said, he told me. He said my brother came to him in the morning in his room and told him to be nice to me. And that, you know, me crying, like, just, you know, just be there for me. I guess my brother knew nobody else was. I mean, I had family, but, you know, they have, you know, my sister has her family, my mom, she's got her husband, you know, my dad, you know. I don't like to burden people, I really don't. And when he told me that, I'm like, and my son was like, let's see, 5. So he didn't have an imagination like that. Like, he don't know what ghosts are. He don't know nothing like that. He's a little scaredy cat. So when he told me that, I was like, oh my gosh. And he just said it so nonchalant. Like, oh yeah, he came and he told me. He came by the other day. Like, what? So, if you don't believe in past life and, you know, afterlife and stuff like that, spirits, I mean, it's true. It really is. And it's nothing bad. I mean, I know it's not what we're traditionally taught, but it's actually helped me in my life journey now. And I wouldn't, you know, sometimes we have to, you know, we're stubborn and stuck in our ways, and we have to change our ways, and we don't want to, as much as we try to fight it and deny what's there. Like, it's there in front of us, but like me, it took me, I was in that relationship for 9 years, and we were fucking fighting like cats and dogs the whole time. I was in big time denial, okay? And I will admit that now. Because I really did love that person. I did, and I gave her everything I had. Because I wanted her to be happy, and she just wasn't happy with me. She's just not happy with anybody. And she's going to have to figure that out by herself, because I'm not going to help her. I tried to help her so many times, and it's like, yeah, okay, bitch, you got to help yourself. And that's what I did. And that's what I've been doing. And now life is great, you know? But, anyway. So, the moral of the story is, don't judge people by what they look, okay? No, I mean, I'm telling you, my brother did look shady. He did look shady. But he was like the most loyal, smartest, like, person. I'm not just saying that because he's my brother. Like, he literally is. Everybody will say that. Ask anybody that knew him in the hood, and they will all say that. He's loyal. And if anything, if I ever die, suddenly, I don't want to be known as all these rumors that are out here about me, because that's not me, I'm not that person. I want people to know that I'm a good person too, and because I am a good person. I'm just misunderstood. Anyways, I'll let you go because I gotta go wash my face now. Thank you for watching, and tell your people you love them, because we don't know how long we're gonna be here. Forgive, because you never know when the last time you're gonna see your person. Like, I didn't know I wasn't gonna see my brother again, and I didn't know he was gonna die that day. Like, I would have gone to the hospital, but I didn't. That was my choice, and I regret it. But I forgive myself, because the situation that I was in, the mindset that I was in at that time is totally different than the mindset I am now. And that's growth, baby. That's all we can wish for, right? All right. I gotta go. Bye-bye.